Daniel had always loved night drives. They were the only moments when life felt quiet enough for him to breathe. With the window slightly open and the cool wind brushing against his face, he could almost forget the weight of the world resting on his tired shoulders. In the back seat, his 8-year-old daughter, Mia, hummed softly to the tune on the radio, her small hand clutching the new storybook she insisted on reading the moment they reached home. "Daddy, do you think the moon ever gets lonely up there?" she asked suddenly. Daniel smiled through the rearview mirror. "I think the moon watches over everyone. That must feel nice." Mia nodded thoughtfully, staring out the window as the silver glow of the moon reflected in her eyes. The road stretched empty ahead, lined with tall pines swaying peacefully under the night sky. Daniel felt a rare calm settling in. After years of juggling 2 jobs, overdue bills, and taking care of Mia alone, moments like this, simple, quiet, and filled with gentle conversations, felt like small gifts from the universe. Then, without warning, the universe tore open. A thunderous roar split the silence, so loud it rattled the car. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel instinctively. Mia gasped, dropping her book to the floor. Above them, the night sky ignited with a streak of fire, an aircraft engulfed in flames, spiraling downward like a wounded bird. "Daddy!" Mia cried, fear trembling in her voice. Daniel swerved the car to the side of the deserted road and jumped out, his heart hammering violently in his chest. The burning jet screamed as it descended, pieces of metal breaking off and falling like fiery fragments of a nightmare. The ground shook faintly beneath his feet. "Stay inside the car, sweetheart." "Lock the doors," Daniel said quickly. Mia, wide-eyed and trembling, obeyed without a word. Daniel crouched by her window and forced a reassuring smile he did not feel. "I'll be right back. I promise." But even as he spoke, he knew he was running toward danger, running toward a disaster that any sane person would stay away from. Yet something deep inside him, something instinctive and human, pushed him forward. He couldn't ignore the possibility that someone, maybe several people, were still alive inside that aircraft. The smell of burning fuel thickened the air as he sprinted across the rocky field toward the crash site. Flames licked the night sky, casting a hellish glow across the landscape. Debris lay scattered everywhere: twisted metal, scorched luggage, shattered glass that glittered like broken stars. Daniel's lungs burned as he approached the wreckage. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. The heat blistered his skin, and the crackling flames hissed like angry serpents. But then he heard it. A faint, muffled sound like a groan, a sign of life. Daniel's fear melted into raw adrenaline. He pushed forward, shielding his eyes with his arm, searching desperately through the smoke and fur. The heat radiating from the burning jet was almost unbearable. Daniel squinted through the thick smoke that curled upward like dark, hungry claws. The metallic shell of the aircraft groaned under the pressure of flames, threatening to collapse at any moment. Yet Daniel, heart pounding, hands trembling, forced himself forward. "Hello?" he shouted, voice cracking. "Can anyone hear me?" For a moment, there was only the roar of fire and the crack of rupturing metal. But then there it was again. A faint, desperate sound, a groan. Someone was alive. Driven by pure instinct, Daniel circled the shattered fuselage until he spotted a fractured window partially melted. Around the edges, behind it, a limp figure lay slumped over in a seat, head hanging unnaturally to the side. Daniel swallowed hard. Someone was trapped and badly injured. He grabbed a metal bar from the debris, its end still warm from the explosion. Without hesitation, he slammed it against the window. The first strike bounced off, leaving only a small crack. He hit it again, and again. Each impact sent jolts through his arms, but he didn't stop. Sweat rolled down his forehead, mixing with soot. A final blow shattered the glass, releasing a choking wave of smoke into Daniel's face. He coughed violently, but pushed through the haze and reached inside. "Hey, can you hear me?" he yelled, gripping the man's shoulder. The man moaned weakly, eyelids fluttering. His face was smeared with soot, blood trickling from a cut near his temple. Daniel had no idea who he was, just another human being in need. "I'm going to get you out," Daniel said, more to convince himself than the unconscious stranger. He unbuckled the man's seatbelt with shaking hands. The buckle was hot enough to sting his fingertips, but he ignored the pain. He grabbed the man under the arms and began dragging him toward the broken window. The man's body was heavier than he expected, dead weight slipping from his grip. A sudden explosion behind the cabin jolted Daniel. A piece of flaming debris flew past, embedding itself in the ground not far from where Mia waited in the car. Daniel felt terror surge through him.
He had to move, now.
Smoke filled his lungs. His eyes burned, but he tightened his grip on the man, whoever he was, and pulled with every ounce of strength he had left. Come on, Daniel whispered, voice strained. With one final heave, he dragged the man through the window, stumbling backward onto the grass. He collapsed onto his knees, gasping for air, but there was no time to rest. The flames were spreading rapidly, inching toward the leaking fuel tank. He hoisted the man across his shoulders, legs buckling under the weight. The ground rumbled, another warning. Daniel staggered forward, each step fueled by desperation, determination, and the memory of Mia waiting in the car. He made it 10 steps, then 20, and then with a deafening boom, the jet exploded behind him, lighting up the night sky. Daniel turned his body to shield the unconscious man from the blast. The shockwave knocked him to the ground, but he held on to the stranger firmly. A few seconds later, the world fell silent again. Only the crackle of burning debris remained. Daniel opened his eyes, chest heaving, and looked at the man he had just pulled from death. The stranger's eyes fluttered open for a moment, dark, confused, and full of disbelief. "Who are you?" he whispered, voice nearly lost in the wind. Daniel didn't answer. He simply exhaled, relieved the man was alive. Later, he would learn that the life he had just saved belonged to Victor Hale, one of the wealthiest and most powerful CEOs in the country. But in that moment, he was just a human being who needed help, and Daniel was the only one who The sun rose slowly over the quiet neighborhood, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. Daniel stood at the small kitchen counter, pouring cereal for Mia, trying to pretend everything was normal. But every muscle in his body ached from the night before. His arms still trembled when he lifted the milk carton. His mind replayed the explosion, the smoke, the weight of the unconscious man, over and over. He had barely slept 2 hours. His shirt still smelled faintly of burnt metal. Mia sat at the table swinging her legs, spooning cereal into her mouth with sleepy enthusiasm. "Daddy," she said between bites, "do you think the man you saved is okay?" Daniel paused. He didn't know. Paramedics had arrived after he carried the man to safety. They asked questions he barely remembered answering. Everything afterward felt like a blur. "I hope so," he said gently. "We did everything we could." Mia nodded as if that settled it. But Daniel's heart carried the weight of uncertainty. He stepped onto the small balcony to breathe the cool morning air. From up there, he could see the whole street, old brick buildings, battered cars, kids playing with makeshift soccer balls. Everything looked ordinary, peaceful, exactly the opposite of last night's chaos. Then something broke the quiet. A low hum, powerful, synchronized, controlled, not the sound of everyday cars. Daniel squinted down the street and froze. 3 black Cadillacs turned the corner in a perfect formation, their polished bodies gleaming in the sunlight. They moved slowly, deliberately, as if escorting royalty. Neighbors emerged from homes and balconies, murmuring in confusion, pulling out phones, whispering to each other. "Daddy?" Mia appeared at his side, eyes widening. "Why are they coming here?" Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The cars rolled to a smooth stop right in front of his building. The doors opened simultaneously, another synchronized motion that sent a ripple of awe through the watching neighbors. First came the men in suits, tall, focused, earpieces tucked discreetly into their collars, security, kind only very wealthy or very dangerous people had. Then from the middle car, a man stepped out, bandaged forehead, arm in a sling, a faint burn on his cheek, but very much alive. Daniel recognized him instantly. The man he had carried away from the burning jet. Victor Hale. Even from a distance, Victor carried an aura, calm but powerful, gentle but commanding. He looked around the neighborhood, taking in the worn buildings, the cracked pavement, the children watching from doorways. Then his eyes found Daniel on the balcony. A slow, grateful smile spread across Victor's face. "Daniel Carter," he called up. Daniel swallowed and nodded silently. "I need to thank you," Victor said, voice steady but full of emotion. "You saved my life." Mia squeezed her father's hand, her little eyes glowing with pride. Victor stepped forward, gesturing to the cars behind him. "I didn't come empty-handed." Neighbors gasped. Children whispered. Someone muttered, "Is that the billionaire Victor Hale?" Daniel stood there frozen, torn between disbelief and humility. He wasn't used to attention. He never wanted it, but something deep inside told him that whatever was about to happen would change their lives forever. And as Victor climbed the stairs toward Daniel's apartment, offering a kindness Daniel never expected, one thing became clear. The night he saved a stranger was the morning everything changed. Daniel stood at the entrance of his small apartment, every nerve buzzing with disbelief as Victor Hale, the man he had pulled from the burning jet, stepped inside. The billionaire looked around the cramped living room with a quiet, thoughtful expression. Nothing in the room matched the world Victor belonged to. The faded couch, the peeling wallpaper, the second-hand lamp flickering softly in the corner. But Victor didn't seem judgmental. If anything, he looked humbled. Mia peeked from behind Daniel, her big eyes studying the visitor with curiosity. Victor noticed her and smiled warmly. "You must be Mia," he said gently. "Your dad? He's a brave man." Mia beamed and nodded, stepping forward shyly. "Daddy saved you." Victor lowered himself to her eye level, ignoring the pain in his bandaged ribs. "Yes, and because he did, I get to stand here today. I owe him more than words." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Praise was harder for him to accept than hardship. "You don't owe me anything," he said quietly. "Anyone would have done the same." Victor stood, meeting his eyes. "No, not anyone. Many people would have filmed the crash. Many would have run away. You ran toward fire." A heavy silence settled between them, filled with respect. Then Victor gestured toward the front door. "I'd like to show you something." Confused, Daniel followed him outside. Mia ran ahead, her energy lighting up the dull stairwell. When they stepped onto the street, the 3 Cadillacs still gleamed like polished obsidian under the rising sun. A man in a suit opened the door of the middle car. Inside lay a black leather folder. Victor picked it up and handed it to Daniel. "Open it." With hesitant fingers, Daniel unclipped the folder. The first document made his breath catch. It was the deed to a house, an actual house. Not an apartment. Not a rental. A home with a yard, windows, rooms big enough for Mia to play in. A home he never thought he could give her. "Victor," he whispered, voice cracking, "I can't accept this." Victor shook his head firmly. "You saved my life. Let me help rebuild yours." Daniel turned the next page and felt his knees weaken. A job contract, steady, secure, with a salary 3 times what he currently made. Enough to finally stop juggling 2 jobs. Enough to give Mia the stability she had been missing. And then the last page, a scholarship program for Mia. Her entire education paid for. Tears blurred Daniel's vision. He closed the folder, pressing it against his chest as if afraid it might disappear. "This is too much," he said, voice trembling. "I don't deserve all of this." Victor placed a steady hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You deserve far more than this. You showed humanity when you had nothing to gain. I'm not rewarding you. I'm honoring you." Daniel looked toward Mia, who was twirling in excitement beside the Cadillac, unaware of the magnitude of what was happening. For the first time in years, Daniel felt hope, not the fragile kind that flickered during quiet nights, but a strong, steady flame that warmed his heart. And in that moment, he realized kindness truly had the power to change lives, not just the life he saved, but his own as well. Daniel sank into the driver's seat of one of the gleaming Cadillacs, still in disbelief. The leather smelled new, and the polished dashboard reflected the morning sun like a promise of brighter days. Mia bounced in the back seat, her small hands clutching the folder that contained her scholarship and her father's new life. Eyes wide with excitement. "Daddy, is this real?" she whispered, barely able to contain her joy. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. For years he had struggled just to keep food on the table, working endless hours while worrying about bills, rent, and Mia's future. He had grown accustomed to the quiet desperation of a life where hope often felt distant, and yet here he was sitting in a car he never imagined owning, with the knowledge that his daughter's future was suddenly secure. He glanced through the windshield at Victor Hale, standing with his security team by the street. The billionaire's expression was calm yet kind, filled with a quiet dignity that spoke more than any words could. Daniel realized that Victor's wealth, his influence, even his power, it all felt secondary compared to the simple, human gratitude he carried. "You know," Daniel said, finally breaking the silence. "I didn't do it for this. I didn't even think about what might happen. I just did what I had to do." Victor's eyes softened. "And that's exactly why you did the right thing. It wasn't about recognition or reward. It was about being human. That's something money can't buy, Daniel. That's something the world desperately needs more of." Mia leaned forward from the back seat, her small face pressed against the glass. "Daddy, good things really do come back," she said, her voice innocent yet wise. Daniel smiled through the tears threatening to spill. He reached into the folder and held up the deed to the new house, the job contract and the scholarship papers. "Not just good things, sweetheart, but good people." He started the engine and the car purred to life smoothly, like a promise ready to be fulfilled. As they drove away, Daniel caught a final glance at Victor. The billionaire nodded, a small, knowing smile crossing his face. Daniel understood. This wasn't just a gift of wealth, jobs, or material comfort. It was a gift of faith in humanity, a reminder that courage, compassion, and selflessness could change the course of lives. Driving down the street, Daniel felt the weight of his past struggles lift. He looked over at Mia, who was laughing, her hair catching the morning sunlight. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to dream, not about mere survival, but about thriving, about giving Mia a childhood full of love, security, and hope. The chain of events that began with a moment of instinctive bravery had transformed everything. Daniel realized that life could turn in the blink of an eye, and that one selfless act, no matter how small it seemed in the moment, could ignite a ripple of miracles. And in that moment, Daniel and Mia understood a truth far greater than wealth. Fame or fortune, humanity, kindness and courage are the greatest treasures one can ever possess. As the Cadillac rolled forward toward their new life, the sun shone brighter than ever, and Daniel knew with all his heart that this was only the beginning.